Good day, everyone. My name is Ritesh Mukherjee. You have joined the 128 Technology, KAEMI and ZPE Systems webinar on deploying smart edges to support modern applications. This is going to be an exciting webinar as we have discussed requirements, solutions, and deployment experiences with smart edges. We're going to give it another 2 minutes to let folks join the online webinar. Please sit tight and do not go anywhere. Good day, everyone. My name is Ritesh Mukherjee, Vice President of Product Management at 128 Technology. We have an excellent webinar in store for you today. Some housekeeping tasks. You're not allowed to leave this webinar. If you must leave, then you must watch the recording within 48 hours, and you must ask questions. Just kidding. But please ask questions, and we will try to answer them as we go along. We have an excellent set of presenters for you today. Quick intros on who they are. First, we have Rene Newman. Rene is Solutions Engineering Manager at ZPE Systems. He has helped some of the largest companies in the world, such as Amazon, Apple, Society General, and ExxonMobil, rebuild customer satisfaction with better networking. His IT and data center experience spans 22 years. Using ZPE's powerful platform of consolidated devices and intuitive software, Rene continues to improve network architecture for companies across the globe. Welcome, Rene.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sven Launspach, founder and managing director of KAEMI, an integrated IT/OT infrastructure and managed service provider based in Berlin, Germany. One of KAEMI's guiding principles is we take care of connectivity so that the customer can concentrate entirely on its core business. His expertise includes managed services, SD-WAN, multi-cloud applications, and SD and NFV. As a consultant previously, he has led digitization projects for Lufthansa, which has saved millions of euros in operating costs. He is in demand for his thoughts and conferences and IT events. He's also managing director of Consultpool, who offer high-skill consulting experience for DAX companies. Thank you for joining us, Sven.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start by telling our listeners on who the three companies are before we jump to requirements for Smart Edge. Rene, can you tell us more about ZPE Systems, where you guys are based, and what you guys do, and who are your customers?
Yeah, okay. ZPE Systems, we were originally founded in Fremont, California, around about 7 years ago. We are a manufacturer of management, of a management platform, essentially. We have a very strong background in the out-of-band business. So managing data centers, access to devices in your data centers, and we bring that now to not only the data center but to the edge, to remote sites as well. We have offices all over the globe. Our main presences are in the US, as mentioned before, in Brazil, India, and then in Europe, here in Ireland and in Germany as well. So that's just a 2-minute rundown.
Yeah, thanks. That's a good intro on ZPE Systems. Sven, can you tell us more about KAEMI? The photograph tells you are based in Berlin, but what do you guys do and who are your customers?
Yeah, of course. We have a lot of different customers, a lot from the energy market. And we offer or we found as a managed service provider, but more based on a pure OpEx model, and very specialized on SD-WAN connectivity and also a lot of multi-cloud connectivity. We see the multi-cloud connectivity is growing a lot now because of the raising of the public cloud. The public clouds bring us much more projects right now to connect them, or the different one.
Thanks, Sven, and welcome. A quick update on 120 technology before we begin. This is our 6th anniversary week. We have raised about 100 million in funding. We are located in Boston on Route 128, which is why we are called 128 Technology. We make session-based routers, which have high scale and performance and do not use tunnels. That is our main claim to fame, is that we are able to do everything without the use of tunnels or overlays. So that gives high scale and performance. We have about 120 employees in total and about 50 patents. Most of our customers are mainly service providers and large to medium enterprises. Our deployments range in hundreds of sites, range to thousands. Some of these which I've listed here, I'm not going to go over them each one. We have a nice use case for you guys today, later on with public clouds. But we have deployments with some of the largest companies, and they run in tens of thousands of routers. We are the only vendor on the planet who has a deployment of 5,000 sites or 10,000 routers with 3 uplinks in each site in a full mesh or any-to-any connectivity without hub and spoke. That's a summary of who we are. Let's get back to the topic we are going to talk about today, which is smart edges. We know that modern applications like AR, VR, autonomous cars, smart cities, smart agriculture, IoT, and 5G are driving processing of data at the edge of the network to improve latency and manage bandwidth. What are the requirements? Let's talk about what are the requirements we are seeing from the smart edge from customers. First, Sven, what are your thoughts? What are you seeing customers ask for the smart edge?
Yeah, I see that customers like the simplicity in the smart edges, that we bring simple solution, and they can use it more in an OpEx model as a platform. And let's say like the people like to use public clouds, and it comes much more to the edge clouds, that they can use it just in a easy version to bring services on top on this combination of what you both offer, the combination of SD-WAN, this your solution, and the ZPE platform together.
Nice. Yeah. So simple and reliable connections to the smart edge and also to public clouds. Yeah. Definitely, that's something we're seeing all the time. As applications move to public clouds, it's becoming very imperative to provide that simplicity and reliable connections. Yeah. Rene, what are you seeing from? Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Sven.
Yeah, they really want more to concentrate on applications and to process on the IT, and not really anymore on the infrastructure. And this is what we like to offer to the customer.
Absolutely makes sense. Yeah. Rene, what is your take on requirements for the smart edge? What are you guys seeing from being a hardware vendor and also a solutions provider? What are you seeing?
Yeah. So yeah, from our customers, I would say what we can definitely see is what originally drove the move into the cloud. We can now see very similar patterns moving to the edge. So a lot is there where customers are looking for reduced hardware complexity, i.e. collapsing hardware into less devices, essentially bringing the same management capabilities which you have in the cloud more towards the edge as well. So that means, as Dirk already or Sven already mentioned, easy deployments, scalable. Enterprise security is a big driving point as well. I mean, we see that more and more going to the edge as well. Always on connectivity, be that through existing MPLS lines, even though we see their huge move away from it, to the new SD-WANs, to 4G, 5G connectivity, or whatever customers might have in the remote sites. And then overall is And I think every customer has the same issue. They have to do with the same amount of people they currently have. There is a huge lack of IT personnel everywhere on the globe. So they're reducing management overhead.
Absolutely. We see that as well, that the requirement now is to move towards DevOps, automation, secure connections, fast deployment. That has become forefront in any deployment now. I absolutely agree with that. At 128 Technology, we are seeing three distinct areas in which the Smart Edge is being used by our customers. One of them is SD branch. We are seeing the Smart Edge become the transformation point for the entire site. It is replacing all of the middle boxes. We are seeing these edges intelligently connect to public clouds, as both Rene and Sven mentioned, over various transport networks. So the ability to have great connections from this Smart Edge, which is replaced and become the only unit in the branch. We're seeing that definitely. We're also seeing layer 2 sites being connected using the Smart Edge, so a collapsing of functionality between layer 2 and layer 3 sites. The other thing which we see very often is in 5G. We are seeing applications being moved to the edge of the network. Public cloud providers are partnering with telcos to extend the cloud to the edge of the network. We recently saw many announcements on these with Azure and AWS and others partnering with telcos to place their nodes closer. So there is a distinct need to discover these mobile edge compute nodes without requiring reconfiguring the network and to keep sessions alive when mobility events occur in the network. The other area where we are seeing the requirement for Smart Edge is obviously for IoT. We are seeing requirements for differentiated treatment to different IoT flows. Today, most IoT traffic is simply tunneled back to the cloud, but we are seeing the need for different IoT traffic being guided to different locations, and some of these even being guided to nodes closer to the user for faster response or dynamic response. There is also a need for inherent security and the ability to dynamically reconfigure these IoT devices because, like I said, many of them require different SLAs and they need to go to different points in the network. So you need to have like a dynamic way of modifying your network or taking feedback from an external controller and being able to modify your network or a self-organizing network. We're seeing that becoming a big requirement as people move towards the Smart Edge. Now that we have discussed some of the requirements, let us talk about some of the solutions being proposed by the different companies. We will, of course, talk about it individually, and then we also have a deployment use case, which we have done jointly, which we want to present, of course, to the audience. But having said that, Rene, can you tell us what's ZPE's response to these requirements? What solutions you and your team are bringing forward for customers?
Yeah, of course. So briefly, here maybe it's worth mentioning what cornerstones are from our company perspective is, and that is number one, we want to be vendor neutral as much as we can to give the customer a lot of opportunity to deploy the right solutions, and number two, to give them a management platform which allows them to integrate with their existing tools which they already have. So because of that, essentially our main focus there is to provide that to the customers in the edge environment. Key things is here the zero-touch provisioning of end devices, of devices in the cloud deployment options, to allow them to not only easily set up our own devices, but ideally the entire site. That would include something like 128T router on site or any other devices they might have on site. Simplified management. So here ideally we provide a very, very easy interface ourselves, but if the customer already has something like Ansible, any automation tools, anything like it, that it's really easy to integrate them into the overall picture, the overall solution, correct? I mean, that is the key. People have less and less time to learn new tools. Flexibility, I mean, that is key. Replacing hardware on site is always a difficult part. You see it over and over. Specifically with the global deployment, sometimes you just have major issues getting hardware even on site. So by providing a unified platform, hardware platform, which allows you to really deploy the actual SD-WAN solution or security solution or whatever, is of a huge benefit to our customers. And then on top of that, because it is it's our background. We add out-of-band capabilities to all of our products as well. I mean, full of your remote service.
Sven, from a managed service provider point of view, what solutions are you guys bringing to your customers, and what are you seeing customers use?
Yeah, that's what René was mentioning. This is what we love to build our kind of edge marketplace to the customer. And here's some examples how we build things together on one box, on one hardware, like EU router together with a Windows server, because some of the small locations still need Windows server, like maybe a print server or Active Directory server. Some customers still like that and have it in one box. And with a really nice possibility for the out-of-band solution. Or some customers need a kind of a backup solution on small locations. And this is how we built the Data Cyrus. It's a bit more known in the States, and with the SD-WAN together. The next things what we're also doing on working on is the packet core, the 5G packet core on the platform to bring private LTE, private 5G to customers. And this is a huge, huge thing in the future to connect a lot of IoT devices.
Yeah, excellent. And we are glad that you're using the 128 routers for this.
I have to say it's our standard. But of course, you can also combine a lot of other things like UTM firewalls, so forth, whatever. When the people are really like, let's say it's a really kind of edge cloud marketplace what we try to do. And with the ZPE solution, we can do the entry point or to do the DevOps, to the management on one point, because they offer this cloud solution to manage out-of-band manage the edges.
Yeah, no, that's great, and we are glad that the 128 routers on the ZPE Systems, along with the KAEMI expertise for managed services, is really picking up. From a 128 technology standpoint, we are recommending the use of obviously the 128 routers. I'm just going to quickly explain why we recommend the session-based routers versus traditional routers. The session-based routers are obviously their software routers, and just like Sven and René mentioned, you can host us on any hardware platform, and you can co-host us with these smart edges with applications. So the 128 technology solution is simple. It does not require tunnels or overlays like IPsec, GRE, VXLAN, or any other encapsulation or tags. This brings, of course, huge bandwidth savings. Most of our customers see 30 to 50% savings in bandwidth over tunnel-based overlays. There is also a huge performance or scale benefit. We are service-oriented, so we can discover mobile edge compute nodes and route to them without requiring any changes in the network. We can do this over different paths that need SLAs and fail over instantaneously. The removal of tunnels prevents any delay in setup time, so our failures are always instantaneous. We are also a zero-trust network. We are ICSA certified firewall, where every router is the firewall. We are FIPS 140-2 certified for encryption authentication, so all of our schemes are NIST verified. The 120 technology solution is also dynamic and responds to network changes to offer secure segmented network slices to applications. And this ultimately leads to savings and costs. And of course, we can run on white boxes, such as those which René mentioned from ZPE. We are deployed in ZPE boxes, and we're going to talk about some of the deployments which we did with KAEMI as the managed service provider. But before we do that, let us talk about who is using these solutions and where we are seeing these solutions being deployed today. René, can you tell us, where you're seeing success with your solutions being used for the smart edge, in what areas or in what kind of deployments?
Yeah, of course. So I think I want to talk briefly about two specific customers or use cases which we have seen where we have been really beneficial. Both, funny enough, we're with you guys, 128T. So one was a big oil and gas company. and quite obviously they have a lot of remote sites which are extremely hard to access, not only due to security, but physically it's very, very hard to get to those sites from time to time. And their requirement was really that they needed they were looking for a simple SD branch SASE solution for the remote sites, which allowed them failover and management of the remote sites. So essentially, they wanted to do as much as they could remotely, but they needed good connectivity to the sites. That is really what was driving the whole system. So our solution was that we provided them with was based on one of our hardware platforms, which is dedicated to the edge, the Nodegrid Gate SR. And essentially on top of that, we made the whole deployment process with them as easy as possible. It's fully automated. And as part of that, we fully deploy a 128T router. And actually, specifically in that use case, it's actually in a HA environment as well. So really, that allowed the customer to reduce the CapEx and OpEx costs for the remote sites. Okay. So, and allowed them to essentially just, they don't have to send anybody on site. Second one, it's more or closer to home, essentially was a really, really large retail store. And they had, and their requirement was that they had to reconnect or provide access capabilities in the store to the customers, to the employees, and they needed everything concentrated, and then the whole store needed to be connected back out to the internet and to the headquarters. And here, same thing, or very similar. Based on one of our hardware appliances, actually each store has multiple devices in the store to provide the connectivity locally. We concentrate everything on one of our hardware appliances, where we then have on top of that the necessary software to provide the SD-WAN capabilities, to provide the connectivity back out to the internet, and then back to the headquarters. So both very, very similar in some scenarios, but very, very typical edge scenarios, actually.
Yeah, no, that's great. And we are glad that in both cases you said, it's 128 routers being used. We're very happy about that. And yeah, we can talk more about that use case as well. But Sven, from a KAEMI standpoint, I know we're going to talk about the big deployment you guys did with a public cloud provider connecting remote sites, but any other traction areas you're seeing traction in?
Yeah, we see the retail use case also very useful for the platform. Retail is quite often a lot of very different apps in the locations themselves, like the POS systems, digital signage, CCTV recording, and all the things. And it's still on the site, not all in the cloud. And to have it on one platform, it's all this advantage what René already mentioned, is retail really a perfect use case for that.
Yeah, no, that's great. From a 128 standpoint, we are seeing three different areas where we see most of these edge deployments being used. One of them is obviously large service providers or managed service providers or wholesale providers using us to provide connectivity to their end customers. And a lot of that is retail, just like René and Sven both mentioned. We're seeing retail being the largest chunk of deployment. In fact, two of our largest deployments with 10,000 sites, almost 10,000 sites each, is in retail. But we are seeing that customers, managed service providers or service providers are using us to connect multiple sites. And obviously the multi-site connectivity, the larger the number of sites, obviously the more complex the deployment and the less capability of a tunnel-based solution working, because you need to backhaul everything as you cannot terminate so much tunnels. In our case, it's an any-to-any connection between any routers, so you can be in a full mesh, or if you want, you can do hub and spoke. And since the number of sites are large, many of them are remote, like René just mentioned, the oil and gas use case where the customer is connecting over satellite or LTE networks, and they want to save all the bandwidth they can because they need to have, they don't have large throughput and they need to save bandwidth. So there is another case where the solution works out really great. These are some of the customers. I only mentioned the ones which are publicly announced. Obviously, we have many, but I just wrote 2 examples of each for publicly announced use cases. The other one which we are seeing is a flexible service edge, where you put our routers in at the edges, and that becomes a flexible edge in the sense it can do, if you don't want SD-WAN, that's fine. You can have it as only for visibility and analytics. We can do application identification. We can tell you who's watching Facebook, how much of Netflix traffic is there. You can prioritize things accordingly. You also have the ability to do remote upgrades and upgrade it to SD-WAN. You have LTE uplinks as backups, or you can even use it as an active link. And we are seeing the flexible service edge where the router is always present, and you, depending on the features you enable, it provides you that functionality you need. And some of the customers who are now deploying us for this is Momentum Telecom in the US and SNET in South Korea. We're also seeing 5G, IoT, and cloud applications being used. We're going to talk about a cloud deployment with ZPE and KAEMI soon. But we are seeing for IoT as well. And the example is NVEN Energy Corporation. They have these remote sites in the Gulf of Mexico. And when fog rolls in the Gulf, in the sea, it's very difficult to have good satellite and microwave connections. And there our solutions prove really great because you always have connectivity and you can fail over and you're saving bandwidth, and so connections work better. We're also seeing recently another use case for discovering MEC and mobility for 5G. We are seeing the ability to discover MEC nodes and for mobility, our solution being used because we can work well in those cases as well. So those are some of the broad use cases we are seeing. Let's now talk about a deployment that we have done jointly, and we'll go in detail and talk about what we learned from there and what we are seeing. This is a deployment on ZPE hardware with KAEMI as the managed service provider and 128 technology solution. There was a public cloud provider in the picture, and we'll talk about that as well. So the end customer is Engenie. They are a large French multinational electric company operating in energy and renewable energy, nuclear, natural gas, and so on. They have roughly about 150,000 employees worldwide and revenues of about 60 billion euros. One of the challenges they face with having such a large distributed workforce is that many of their sites are located in areas which do not have great connectivity. They need these sites to have superior connectivity back to their headquarters in Europe. Some of the challenges they face include recognizing applications and providing granular QoS to these applications. They need the ability to discover best paths and to put applications on those paths that meet the SLA for the required applications. They also need the ability to add sites into the network without requiring the need for complex address renumbering or restructuring. Many of these applications carry sensitive information, so they need security, and they want the ability to service chain with cloud security providers when the traffic needs to be scrubbed that is being sent. Also, since they are located in different parts of the world, they need to meet regulations and compliance standards both globally and locally. The scenario we're going to talk about today is how Engenie connected their sites in China back to their offices in Europe using the internet and the public cloud provider's backbone to get superior performance. René and Sven, do you guys want to add anything on the requirements before we look at the network deployment?
No, not on the requirements, but maybe I can tell a story that I got this request from the CRO that they have to connect the offices in China and as soon as possible. And this was maybe the next slide then. And it was like, oh, as soon as possible. This is, of course, as soon as possible. How we know it was in the past with MPLS lines and so on. How should it go? How should it work? As soon as possible. Okay, and then we had an idea what you will tell next. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone wants a solution which is immediate and can be deployed immediately and requires it yesterday, but I wish we also do that. But yeah, this is a good solution. Let's talk about first the deployment and some of the things we saw before we take some questions from the audience. The deployment, this is how the deployment network looks like. They have sites in Paris and Germany, which they need connections, which they need to connect to from sites back in China. And of course, they have they were using the Alibaba infrastructure, the Alibaba cloud for connecting sites back. One of the ways to leverage is that Alibaba has their own private backbone with steady connections between their sites, so we can leverage that to kind of provide connections back. The 3 sites that we are using is one in Shanghai, one in Hong Kong, and one in Frankfurt. And that's the orange lines obviously show the Alibaba backbone providing the connections. The other is we have independent internet connections, so we can break out from the Hong Kong Alibaba cloud onto the internet and use the internet for connecting back to the Equinix cloud exchange fabric. And the Equinix exchange obviously in Germany always has connections to Frankfurt and of course dedicated connections to AWS and can also reach their Paris site. That is through Equinix Cloud Exchange. One of the things was providing secure connections from their China site and providing steady connection over these 2 links or these 2 different clouds. One is the Alibaba cloud, and obviously the other is the Equinix cloud, Equinix or the internet path. So let's look at how the deployment works. The sites in China are deployed on the ZPE hardware, and KAEMI has done the configuration and the deployment as a managed service provider of this entire solution. The 128 routers are placed in these Alibaba cloud locations to provide so that we can check what is the peering relationship and the SLAs between these locations. The Equinix fabric also hosts one of the 128 routers to provide direct connections. As we can see some of the measurements which it shows in this diagram, the breakout from 128 technology over the path from Shanghai to Frankfurt has certain latency, and others, the internet path has obviously longer latency. And we also have a breakout from Shanghai onto the Zscaler cloud to provide firewall functionality or cloud firewall functionality. Sven, do you want to talk about the Active Directory or the other cases?
Yeah, it's how I told before that we built that in 14 days, and I think it's very fast deployment for that the customer could use the line in 14 days after he had the idea told us we need connectivity to a China office. Actually, Beijing also was right now connected to the solution, and the huge advantage is that we could fit the regulation of China that the user is just served to websites that are served to the Zscaler based in China, and can use also the line to go to the AWS server. They are based in Frankfurt, and this was perfect development to use the 128 technology route engine to say which application and what should go which way. Also, that we say all the traffic that was more important for the good cloud exchange and cloud enterprise network from Alibaba, we can use the line in between with 142 milliseconds, and traffic, what it's maybe a mail, it's not so important. We can use the other way, what's much more smaller, and we saw that the combination is really wonderful for the customer. And on top, we use the ZPE on the side, and on one box is also the Active Directory running on the box and the 128 router.
Yeah, thanks, Sven. I should have mentioned, I'm going to just talk about it quickly. Yeah, so the 128 router that Sven mentioned, first of all, I would say that Sven saying that it deployed in 14 days from start to finish, that's really great. and everything was done remotely. That's really awesome. The 128 routers obviously are monitoring all the paths among themselves, so they know how much is the delay, jitter, latency between them over all paths. And so we can measure that it's 142 and 256 over the internet and so on. The routers also have the ability to discover applications and can put applications on path which meets the SLA at any given point of time. In case of degradations, they can fail over to other paths and you can get superior connections. You can obviously encrypt and encapsulate and authenticate the traffic, so everything can be secured. And there are some questions, and so I can answer it right now, is that how do you, since you're not encapsulating, how do you provide security? Well, encapsulation does not provide security. Encapsulation only adds an IP header. What provides security is encryption and authentication, which is part of IPsec, but you can also do it separately. For example, I have banking applications on my phone today which connect back, and I don't rely on the network to do security for me. I mean, it's not like it's going in clear text to a router and then the router is doing encryption. It is secured directly from my phone. So you can do encryption yourself, and that's what the 128 routers do. They encrypt and authenticate packets, and they NAT packets so that the IP addresses are hidden. So it's even more secure than any IPsec solution. Having said that, since we know now the paths and we know which traffic is coming in, we can put the traffic on paths which meet the SLAs of the applications, and this is how the solution meets the requirements. Let's talk at some of the metrics we measured and what we saw in the network over different paths so that we can provide a better explanation on what we are seeing. As you can see, we can monitor from any of the locations, just like Sven mentioned, or on the ZPE box. We can monitor any of them, and from that location, we can figure out what is the latency, delay, jitter, loss, linked loads, or any of this to different paths. What this is showing is the view from Frankfurt, and over a long period of time, you can see it's a couple of days of more than a couple of weeks of about a week or so of monitoring this network. As you can see, the orange line, it shows that there are long outages because the internet path sometimes suffers from changes in the network or loads and from loss of traffic. What you see is the green line, which is providing a reliable latency, and that is over the Alibaba cloud. So we can use that at different points in the time for providing regulated or whatever fixed SLA to an application which needs it, and we can use the internet path for other paths. The other fluctuations you see are for the different paths we can take in the network, and we can reach the destination. The other thing what we wanted to show is the packet loss. As you can see, packet loss changes and it fluctuates as Sven will mention. It fluctuates pretty much periodically over the day because of time of day of people using the internet and people using different paths in the network. So you can see that the fluctuations are pretty much constant over time. But the green line, which is at the bottom, shows how that the packet loss over the Alibaba cloud is very steady and hardly there. Sven, do you want to comment on or Rene, do you want to comment on any of these stats we saw?
No, it's for us was really the perfect solution to bring everything together, and it's a really nice combination, and it's a big advantage for the customer to use that. And also to work with the Alibaba cloud was really good to use the cloud, the network in between the clouds. And we also work of course, with other clouds right now to bring more this functionality, the SD-WAN, into the I just missed the name, the clouds themselves, hyperscaler. And we right now working on a project to do this also with Google, to bring it to Brazil, to have a connectivity to customer to Brazil with Google. It doesn't matter which cloud it is, but it's more the future to use the the clouds for the new MPLSs, I would say.
Yeah, the hyperscalers backbone can also be used as for transferring data, and that's definitely a good observation here, because they provide excellent metrics for different paths. Let's look at the view from Frankfurt. What we did is the 128 routers obviously have the ability, like I said, to go into any of the routers, so we can go and we can select. In this case, we are seeing what's the latency or what's the latency or path view from Frankfurt. As you can see, the packet loss, and the packet loss keeps fluctuating. It's high packet loss on public links, and of course, it's very reliable quality of service on links which are through the Alibaba cloud. And this shows the latency graph. It shows the difference in the latency between the public cloud and the private cloud. As you can see, between the internet and the public cloud. As you can see that there is a constant improvement in latency over the Alibaba cloud, and so we can use that effectively when measuring the different delays and different latencies on the paths. Let's also look at it from the China side. What we see as the packet loss and the latency. As you can see, it's similar. There is high packet loss on the public internet. There's hardly any loss when you go over on the public provider's backbone. And as you can see that there are some which have constant latency, and that works well for items such as Teams or WebEx, which require good connections or low latency connections. And what it shows is basically we can have fast connections to public clouds in Asia using the Alibaba cloud. Any other comments, guys, before we go to the benefits the customer sees as a result of all of this? Unless someone got arrested. Okay, so let's talk about some of the benefits of this joint solution that we brought. One of them is obviously superior path metrics. As Sven mentioned, the ability to see the different paths and to put applications based on each application's needs on a specific path, that really helps improve the end user experience. Also monitoring and analytics and alarming. As you can see, we showed some of the graphs, which you can see at any point in real time what is happening over different links and what is the status of every link, how much is the delay, jitter, loss, and what SLAs each link is providing to the application. Sven mentioned already that we deployed it in 14 days. So it's fast automated setup on the ZPE hardware as well as in the Alibaba cloud. And ultimately, this provides reduced costs, improved bandwidth, better performance, and excellent user experience to the end customer. Let's take some of the questions before we go to our next topic. Some questions from the audience. How do you guys read the Microsoft Metaswitch acquisition? Rene or Sven, do you guys want to comment on it?
No.
Well, from a 128
right now we have
perspective,
nothing.
Yeah, from a 128 perspective, we definitely see that Microsoft is stepping up there because they bought the soft switches and the network management from Metaswitch. We definitely see this stepping up their game for 5G. We also see that their acquisition of some of the gateway providers or the wireless gateway and the packet controllers and so on. We see that they're also working with the telcos and hosting their Azure Edge nodes closer to the user. And we see that partnership and being able to discover MEC nodes being important. And we do definitely see them playing more in the 5G space. What security can you offer for IoT end nodes? From a 128 perspective, we provide secure segmented connection for each flow. So instead of what happens in tunnels is you aggregate all these IoT flows into a single tunnel, and you lose visibility into different IoT devices and what needs to be done per IoT device. In our case, each flow is separately segmented, and you can encrypt and authenticate, like I mentioned before, without any encapsulation. So it's completely secure. It's FIPS 140-2 certified encryption, and you can give each IoT device security till it gets to the point. You can also, of course, give different SLAs, which I already talked about. What tools can you use to measure link bandwidth? is it before you deploy SD-WAN or after? Sven, what do you guys do when you guys deploy as a managed service for different SD-WAN paths? Do you measure links before, or you decide once you've deployed which paths to take?
We quite often we bring the links to the customers, not in the cloud, of course, but then we know the bandwidth. Why? Because we offer also the last line to the customers.
Yeah, so we, and 128, we use multi-hop BFD for measuring quality of links when there is no flows. When we have active flows, we use marking of, we color the packets like 5 red, 5 blue, and when we lose a red, we know. On the other side, if we get 5 red, 4 blue, we know we lost a blue, and so on. So we can color packets, and for when they're active flows, and when there are no active flows, we use multi-hop BFD to learn delay, jitter, loss. We have enhanced BFD with a metadata which tells us we can specify delay, jitter, loss. And of course, what we recommend is to have customers decide on SLAs for applications. For services, you define applications, and the routers will dynamically decide on the fly what paths to take. Rather than having a before or after decision, it's going to be dynamic and be made at real time based on what the situation of the network is. Do we support optimizing, accelerating applications? Absolutely. For any application, we can identify traffic, and we can tell what priorities to give it, what paths to select. And so by itself, you'll have better performance over different paths in the network. We can also accelerate applications by using a lot of session optimization techniques. Like for TCP applications, we can do fast stack, caching, and other things which will speed up applications so that they don't have to retransmit over different links. So definitely we do support that. Regarding the links taken by applications, is it predefined? Rene or Sven, what do you guys do for your deployments? Do you predefine application flows, or is it based on DPI in the sense it's real-time decision?
Sven?
Right now it's predefined, but in the future we work more on to do more the logging of bring the information to Datadog and to work with that to change that.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea to have some. Yeah, that's a good idea to have some sort of AI to determine what kind of paths to take and so on. And we are building a lot of this into our product as well. Let's talk about some of the future products you guys are working on and what we will see in coming from the vendors. So Sven, can you tell us what is KAEMI working on nowadays, and what you guys are trying to bring to your customers? You already mentioned that in future you'll use other Datadog and other things, but what are you guys working on now?
To bring more the edge apps together in the combination to use it with Terraform or the Ansible, but to bring it more, not to see only one app on the edge, to bring it also together to see when this app brings some information, I can change also on that information another app on the edge platform. Most of them is a router, of course. You only do it on one router, but I see the future, the combination of that that brings more the trigger from an app on the ZPE platform and to do something else to another app. And of course, much more application or much more combination with cybersecurity and Internet of Things, what we right now figure out to bring to the edge.
So since you spoke about cybersecurity, there's a question from the audience on how simple was it to set up the connection to Zscaler? And does it required encryption? So how simple was it to set up that connection? Can you tell us, Sven, during the deployment?
Yeah, this is really easy because the 128 router has a plugin for Zscaler, Zscaler, and you can directly use that to connect to the Zscaler. And connectivity to Exchange, Cloud Exchange, to get public clouds is, this is, for us, we use a lot of SD-WAN provider on underneath everything. We also, to the clouds, we use Equinix Cloud Exchange or Epsilon or Megaport. And also, this is what I'm saying, in combination also that we see that we maybe need more bandwidth. We see that on the 128 router, and with this information, we need more bandwidth. We bring that via Terraform, via API to the SD-WAN provider to set up more bandwidth on the SD-WAN line. I see in the future my dream is a bit to have a pre-sync network, to see the application needs more bandwidth at the moment, and I can control everything with the SD-WAN router in combination with the SD-WAN providers.
Absolutely. I mean, that is the perfect dream to have, that everything is automated and, you don't have to do make any changes or anything in the network manually. You can have everything scripted, and that's how we expect it to work. Having said that, the Zscaler, like I said, we have, like Sven mentioned, we have plugins. You basically deploy the plugin on the router, and it provides a secure connection to GRE or IPsec connection back to Zscaler cloud, and you can set it up very easily. Rene, what is next on the horizon for ZPE Systems? What are you guys working on?
So for us, one of the driving forces are going to be our partner integrations and partnerships, specifically with the likes of KAEMI and with you guys. So what we're already providing, and I don't think that I necessarily outlined that before, is we have already very large amount and good support on connectivities, physical connectivities on the devices. So we're going to expand on that. We are going to directly provide 5G connectivity from our devices, Wi-Fi connectivity, Bluetooth connectivity. So specifically, some customer mentioned before IoT devices, so that we can directly or better support IoT devices. Because really what you want for those devices as well, you want to get the security as close to the IoT device as you can. So by providing directly the connectivity to the IoT device, and then maybe in combination with 128T or with a simple WireGuard VPN tunnel back to 128T controller, we should be able to further increase the security for IoT devices as well. So there's a lot around connectivity, a lot around orchestration to make all of that more and more seamless for our partners.
That's excellent. Yeah, that makes. We're glad that you guys are seeing a lot of traction and deployments, and of course we're looking forward to 5G and Wi-Fi solutions, Wi-Fi 6 solutions. That's always something we keep getting asked, and so we are looking forward to that. From a 128 perspective, we are working on a number of things. I'm just going to quickly talk about it. We're working on Ethernet over SVR, which is basically enabling layer 2 connections. So layer 2 sites can be connected over any uplink, even over a layer 3 or any other connection. We'll take care of connecting the multiple sites, handling MAC addresses, and so on. So it's a single box for both layer 2 and layer 3 connections. Like Rene mentioned, we are trying to support more and more hardware profiles and platforms, right from smaller form factor to large 100 gig systems. We already deployed on some of them worldwide, but having said that, we continue to improve our LTE capabilities, dual LTE, dual SIMs, and of course 5G. We're also looking at integrations to identify applications. Some of the questions people asked was that, how do you identify applications directly? We can identify applications based on TLS handshakes, based on many other factors on SNI, Office 365. We can identify applications directly we take the XML feed from Office 365 and can identify traffic like SharePoint, Skype, Teams, and so on separately. The other thing what we have done is we have integrated with Amazon Alexa. This is not the voice. This is basically Alexa website ranking. And basically what it does is it tells us the category, in the sense, today when a flow goes through our router, we know what it is, in the sense, if it's Facebook, we know it's Facebook. If it's Netflix, we know it's Netflix. But the router doesn't automatically understand what it means, in the sense, does Facebook mean social media or does Facebook means business? It doesn't know that. And so this helps us categorize automatically. You can do that for many popular apps like Netflix, Skype, and so on. But if you have thousands and thousands of applications, this is going to automatically classify them. For example, if you go to ESPN, it's going to understand it's sports. If you go to Facebook, it understands social media and so on. We are also working on STEP, which is basically we have all this information on data and analytics, as you saw from the graphs. Based on that, we can do just like what Google Maps does today. It can tell you traffic tomorrow at 9 p.m. We can do the same thing because we know the data, what has happened at 9 p.m. every day in the past couple of months. So we can extrapolate that data and tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. We can also use that data for real-time sharing of information and to find paths in the network. Just like it can tell you today that the road is congested, so don't take the highway, go on the scenic route. Google Maps can tell you that. We can do the same thing with networks and so on. We also introduced a client which can run on desktops and your mobile phones and provide secure connections. And of course, we have also worked on improving our 5G and our partnerships with some of the public cloud and wireless vendors to do automatic discovery of MAC nodes and to provide network slicing. Before we go to final thoughts, let's take a few questions from the audience. So what are your target customers? Is it ISPs, MSPs, tier 2, 3, or enterprises? Sven, I'll let you go first. Who is your target customer? Large service providers or enterprises or medium service providers?
It's enterprise and medium. Also, we work with different ready profiles. Like one project we do right now is to bring WebEx calling to the customer, and it's just a ready profile on a 120T router. But to bring this session-based handling and so on for the voice directly to the customer. But it's more a ready done product. It's not a project. It's more a product to bring. But it's enterprises between, let's say, 10 locations and 500 locations.
Okay. Rene, what about you guys? Sorry, go ahead.
And we right now working on a partner program that MSPs on ISPs. We also have partners, ISP partners, but working on that they can use our services also as a white label service.
Excellent. Rene, what about you guys? Big ISPs, MSPs, small ISPs, or enterprises?
To be quite honest, they are relatively open. I mean, the customers which work best with our platform are quite obviously customers who have to manage remote sites, who have multiple sites, and who have a need for automation. And you can find that in relatively small companies, managed service providers, as well as in medium to very large enterprises.
Excellent. For us, it's everybody. We have small enterprises deployers. We have large enterprises like 10,000 locations deployers. Many of them are through managed service providers, and even, of course, like SoftBank and others, big ISPs are using us to provide connections to their customers. Well, it was really good to have you guys on the call. That's all we have time for today. Rene and Sven, thank you so much for joining us. And we hope the audience can give us some good feedback. Let us know what you think. Any questions we were not able to answer, we will try to do that over email and get back to you, or you can reach out to us. Thank you for having us today, and hope you guys have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you. We have in Germany, we have already, the beer time now.
Okay, thanks everyone. Take care. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.